Hi, beautiful, and welcome to this transmission. Thank you for joining me for this video in which I'll be sharing about one of my greatest passions, and that's the simple but profound impact that meditation can have on your state of well-being through the mental, emotional, and our physical reality. So I think most of us already know that meditation is supposed to be good for us, yeah? But I think it can become a little bit overwhelming. We don't quite know why. We don't know we don't know the mechanism through which it works, the way it impacts our body. And we also don't really understand the techniques that we can use to receive the greatest benefit from it. And so I tend to find that this can mean it's hard to be motivated because it is really a discipline. And when we don't fully understand something, we often don't make a great space for it to be in our life. And the number of times that I've heard people say to me, I can't meditate, it's just not for me. And this is heartbreaking because I know firsthand the profound impact that a regular practice can have. And I also know firsthand how challenging it can actually be to maintain that practice. So I have full understanding from both ends of the scale where it feels impossible at times. But on the flip side, it's also one of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself, especially during those times when you're struggling. So before we get into this, I do just invite you to maybe reflect on what are some of the things that come up for you when you think about meditating? Whether you're a seasoned practitioner or whether you're looking to implement a new practice, there are inevitably points of resistance, and that can look different for different people. So the first step really is to become aware of the way our mind tries to distract us, and that might be, I don't have enough time. It might be, I'm too tired. It might be that once you're sitting there, you're so distracted by picking up the kids, cooking dinner, all those things that come to mind. And so I can't meditate comes up. I was actually recently out of a Vipassana retreat, which is an intensive and deep practice. And that really illustrated for me the need for persistence. So even as somebody who's been meditating for over 10 years, I still found myself really challenged in remaining present to the practice and the space that I was wanting to connect with. And so you're not alone. It's something that we all, they call it a practice, because it is something that we cultivate. You don't tend to pick up a cello and sit down and expect yourself to be able to play it profoundly well the first time. Similarly, the first time you sit down to meditate, we can't expect ourselves to be able to find this incredibly enlightened space of stillness. It's a practice, and there are some easy days. Well, there are some good days, and there are some less easy days. So in this session, I want to just help you with understanding the beautiful benefits, so some really scientific aspects, as well as the techniques that will help you. And in understanding that, perhaps you can then cultivate a practice that works for you. So the other thing is healing. So I know that we might have a different understanding about what I mean by healing, and I'll get into that in the practice. But in connecting more fully to ourselves and our true nature and our true state of balance, we can create a space where our body is able to restore itself, So before I get into the nuts and bolts of it, I just want to share with you a little bit about my journey with meditation and why I love this practice so much. So when I first started meditating, I had just done my first Reiki course. So I've done a number of various healing modalities over the years, and Reiki was really what drew me into this field. And so as soon as I'd done Reiki, we were given a number of exercises to do, practice meditations. And so I just dove into those. I'd found my thing, you know. And throughout the next sort of 6 or 12 months, I continued to dive into certain modalities, and I continued with the meditations. This was amazing, and it enabled me to have, to enhance what was already a profound experience of consciousness. It helped me to cultivate a deeper connection with the healing frequencies and the healing energies that I was attuned to, both through Reiki light dynamics as well as my own unique modality of connection with energy and healing. But during this time, what I found in hindsight, it was all very confusing at the time, but in hindsight, what I was doing was not helping me to cultivate a connection with my lived experience. So my physical body, my day-to-day, the way I was engaging in the world was becoming more and more dissociated as I was kind of moving into these meditations, which often my consciousness was drawn into various spaces which weren't necessarily grounded in this physicality and in this physical body. So I was spending the time in meditation, and I was also gaining great benefit from it. But in the real world, I was kind of becoming quite lost and quite ungrounded. And everything serves its purpose. There's nothing wrong. That was my journey. But then a number of years after that, I kind of moved through some of the modalities that I had learned, and I took on some teacher training, meditation teacher training. And it was in that, the dive into the simplicity of practice, that I found, a real passion of mine, because I mentioned that, the meditation practices I was doing helped me to cultivate my own unique gift, my own unique frequency that I'm here to anchor for the world. But it does the same for you. And the method and the technique, one of the methods I'm going to be sharing with you today, is just helping you to profoundly connect with that true essence of you. That is you. That is not, it's not reliant on any kind of esoteric belief system or religious belief system. It is simply you connecting to your true essence. So coming back, so I started doing the teacher training, and this brought me into what I call, or what is termed, mindfulness-based stillness meditation. And there was also another module based around visualization, and these were really focused on how meditation can impact our lived experience. And in taking on these teachings, my practice just exploded into how I was in this world. It really opened some doorways. Instead of experiencing myself as dissociated from my body, having a spiritual experience which was not reflected in my lived experience, because my physical body was still very much carrying the wounds, the pain, those aspects of me which weren't healed. Whereas my spiritual self, the mental body, was going through quite some profound healing. My etheric body was going through some profound healing. But to bring that through into the reflection of my physical world, that was the next step. And so I've taken a very deeply spiritual path, but I don't want this teaching to be restricted to people who are willing to look at, we don't need to have an experience of multidimensionality. You don't need to tune into archangels or, do card readings and things like that to experience your spirituality. I simply want to guide you to be able to sit in a space of stillness to experience your own truth, your own essence. And that's for me where the beauty is, because they're the vast majority of our population are not aligned with what I call the New Age movement. And meditation, I want to be something that's accessible to everybody, regardless of where they align in their external manifestation or belief system. So, so since doing the teacher training and then deepening into a more grounded and also enhanced understanding of what a meditation practice can do for us as living beings, as living humans, not just as cosmic awareness. I really want to get this message out, and I really want to share this with you. So whether you're experiencing some kind of physical imbalance, some kind of physical illness or dis-ease, or whether you're simply looking for greater emotional calm, mental calm, perhaps nervous system regulation, I really hope that there's something in this session for you. So let me just bring up, I have done some slides, so just bear with me if I can figure this out. Okay, here we go. So as I mentioned, this, just a second. This whole session is based on the premise of meditation for healing. And if you meditate, you can't not heal. And because when we have imbalance or disconnection, which leads to illness in the body, our cells don't communicate, our nervous system may be disrupted, and I'll show you that later. So anything that brings us more deeply into a connection with our whole self is going to open the doorway for some level of healing at some level. So first, before we go into it, what is healing? So healing, we have doctors, we have energy healers, we have psychiatrists, we have all sorts of practitioners. And, healing is an action, as defined in the dictionary, whose goal is the restoration of health. So to that end, we can say, yes, doctors are healing. Energy healers are healing. Psychiatrists are healing, because health is a broad word related to our well-being. So the English word health literally means wholeness, and to heal means to make whole. And I think that's got its roots in early Greek languaging. And so to make whole, and the way I'll be referring to it, is to have a connection and a wholeness, an integration of mind, body, and spirit. You might have a body which is functioning well, but your mental state may be falling apart. That's not wellness, that's not wholeness, and that's not healed. And so what we're aiming to do when we participate in meditation for healing, we're aiming to create a level of integration between those different aspects of ourselves, bring together where perhaps we've had fragments of consciousness. Perhaps we've had an experience which has disrupted our nervous system. And this memory has caused an aspect of ourselves to no longer be integrated as part of the whole. And that can be reflected in our body consciousness, which I won't go into for the purpose of this transmission. Okay, so healing. So healing to make whole and complete. And if you ask, okay, well, what does whole and complete mean to you? And just reflect on that for a moment. What would be shifting in your life in order for you to call it whole and complete? in order for you to feel like, as a unit, as a mind, body, spirit complex, you are whole. So another thing that is a really amazing distinction when we talk about natural and holistic well-being. And the wellness scale is an idea which I came across when I was working in kinesiology. And if you consider a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is practically death, so basically the entire body systems are shutting down, and 10 is optimal health. And by optimal health, I don't mean a lack of symptoms. By optimal health, we're looking at an organism which is capable of regeneration, natural immunity, all of the things, so we can move through the world without, if we encounter things like bacteria, our body's able to respond and, either eradicate or integrate that as, whether it's harmful or beneficial. So optimal health is really a fully functioning organism, not in need of any intervention from any source in order to function at its prime. And that doesn't mean, you become a massive weightlifter or anything like that. There are actually quite a lot of athletes who are not at the level of health of a 10. But the point that I want to make here is that so many of us consider that 5, a lack of symptoms, is optimal health, when in reality 5, a lack of symptoms is really only halfway to our potential. 5 or 6, where we're not coughing, sneezing, spluttering, or suffering. We're not suffering in any way, overt symptoms. That's only half of our real potential. And especially when we consider that as we move from that 5 point to the 10 point, we're not talking just about our physical health. We're talking about our whole organism. So our sense of vitality, the way you wake up in the morning, the way we encounter problems in our environment. So whether that's, somebody being, so-called offensive to us, it's our whole system which moves into that state of complete and utter wellness, and that can lead to that kind of state of bliss as well. So as our body becomes more and more able to experience wellness, so does our mind. There's no separation of those aspects of ourselves. So this is something which I've known for much longer than I've been doing this work for. Our body's blueprint and the innate wisdom that it carries within us. It knows how to be well. But our mental, emotional stress and toxicity, whether that's emotional toxicity or environmental or through our food, it interferes with our body's ability to find balance. And so much of our ability to process and digest negativity or toxicity, be it mental or physical, comes from our mental approach to it. And there are people who teach on this. I think Abraham Hicks, I think Dr. Joe, and also there was an example, Wim Hof, if you've heard of him. He's the Iceman. He does the ice baths and, I think climbed Mount Everest or something wearing shorts. But so, when he got his body, his organism, his mental and emotional and physical body into a state of wellness, he ingested some poison and his body was able to process and move through that state of illness without it impacting him in the way that perhaps we would expect it to. So there are quite a few examples of people out there who have done very scientific processes to illustrate the profound effect that in mind, body, spirit integration has on our physical wellness and on our state of healing. And when we meditate, it's when we actually allow ourselves to restore and retune into that blueprint and that innate wisdom. Now, I also want to make the distinction between, so when I say the blueprint and innate wisdom, this isn't our genetic imprint. And, people until recently, I think, have followed the line that, our genes determine our capacity for wellness. Epigenetics, Bruce Lipton, and I think even the Human Genome Project has since been, well, the Genome Project was recently shown as inconclusive, but epigenetics shows that our capacity to tune into and to process our environment in a different and more positive and healthy manner can influence the way that our genes are expressed. So our genes are actually run by this innate wisdom and blueprint. When we can create the space to tune into that, it's amazing. Like, oh, I love the simplicity and the incredible benefits that come from simply creating the stillness to let your body's wisdom take over, or to let your being's wisdom take over. So this is the technical part of the transmission. So here I've got a table, and we're talking about, we've got the red zone and the green zone. And under each of these, you can see the actual physical expressions of each state. So if we talk about the red zone, that's, when you're always under pressure, under stress. Perhaps you've got a really highly demanding job that you're not able to leave in the office. You bring that home with you. You're lying in bed at night, having it tick over through your head. There's never any space. Or perhaps it could be social stress, social anxiety, which is so common these days. We have this, it's as though our nervous systems have been tuned to live in a hypervigilant state, which means that we never have any downtime. Because even though we're no longer being chased by saber-toothed tigers, we might be scared of what Karen from the cubicle next to us has been saying about us behind our back. And that can, it's these perceived threats. So as you see here under the red zone, perceived threat, challenge, or task. And that leads to a stress response. So then, we go into the fight, flight, withdrawal, freeze, or please. And, it floods the blood to the limbs and the hindbrain, the limbs in case we need to fight or flight. The thing is, these days, we rarely encounter danger that requires us to run or fight, And so the physical impacts of this: increased muscular tension, increased cortisol and noradrenaline, increased heart rate and blood pressure, costal breathing, which is like shallower breathing, reduced digestive enzymes, reduced immune system regulation, or like our immune system doesn't function so well. Tissue repair and cell repair and healing goes down. So instead of focusing its energy on regeneration, that 5 to 10 part of the wellness scale, all of our body's energy goes into, how am I going to escape this danger? Which is only a perceived danger anyway. Then we go, so with the reduced digestion, we aren't absorbing our nutrition the way we should, or the way we potentially can, and our elimination of waste. So we're holding on to the toxicity as well. Increased acidity and toxicity. And I'm just going to reiterate, this is all simply from the mental experience of stress and anxiety. So our body's chemistry literally changes. We have decreased oxygenation, increased free radicals and inflammation. We have an increased sense of pain, but general desensitization. So we become more sensitive and more pain averse. but we're not necessarily feeling as much, if that can make sense. And one of the big practices that we can do to help move the stress emotions through our body is to sit with the feeling of it, because this desensitization where we avoid feeling what's actually present, but we have a greater sense of pain. So increased cholesterol and fats, tumor angiogenesis. So tumors are able to replicate more readily, and increased telomere shortening, which telomeres are to do with they're the protective caps on the end of our DNA strands. And we have genetic instability. So this is where, when we're stressed, it's more likely that those genetic traits that relate to illness or perceived weakness in our body, they're more likely to become expressed when our mental and emotional environment is not feeling safe, it's feeling unstable. And I think the key word here again, I'll say, is perceived. So we have a perceived state of danger. And just quickly run through now. So when we go into the green zone, when we start to feel it relaxed, when we create a space of feeling safety, all of those physical kind of expressions are reversed. We start to experience the beneficial side of things. So when we perceive safety or freedom, the relaxation response is present. It's the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest. And blood can then be diverted from the limbs to our digestive system and organs, where our vital functions are performed. So when we're in our green zone, when we're relaxed, when we take time and space to be present and meditate, we have a reduced muscular tension, increased serotonin and melatonin, and happy chemicals, reduced heart rate and blood pressure. We have an increase in diaphragmatic breathing, which is deeper breathing, which is actually, deeper breathing in itself is one way to regulate our nervous system. Our immune system is better supported. We have more, our digestive enzymes are increased. Tissue and cell repair and healing becomes more available because our body's resources are being diverted to that regeneration rather than survival or escape. So the alkalinity and oxygenation of the body, we're able to better absorb the nutrients that we ingest and release the toxins that that our body can't take. We have a decreased experience of pain, and we have an increase in our sensitization and sensuality. So when we feel like we're safe, our subconscious and our conscious mind is more willing to be present to the sensations and the feelings, the experiences that we're having, instead of trying to block it off and shut it out. So this is scientific. These are all measurable aspects of, letting ourselves run into this danger zone, the red zone, or cultivating a state of safety, in our green zone. And this is what meditation will bring about for you. So Eckhart Tolle. So when we meditate, we are connecting the mind with the body, which I know in my experience, I have experienced huge dissociation. I even mentioned it before. But in this form of meditation, in the techniques which I'm sharing with you today, we're reintegrating that. We're reconnecting the mind with the body, because even our spiritual experience, it's not about transcending the skin suit. It's about integration. It's about bringing the divine into our body so that we can truly experience health and wellness. So as Eckhart Tolle says, the more consciousness you bring into the body, the stronger the immune system becomes. The body loves your attention. Most illnesses creep in when you are not present in the body. If the master is not present in the house, all kinds of shady characters will take up residence there. And, you know, that sort of speaks to that green zone, red zone, you know, having the space for consciousness to be in the body. When we fill our body with consciousness, awareness, light, then we create and cultivate a space where density, if we're talking it from a frequency perspective, the density of illness and disease can't thrive. So we can look at this from the very physical, you know, the acid alkaline, the body's chemistry, or we can look at it from the frequency perspective. It's all the same thing, and you can't have one without the other. So just quickly, whether you're new to meditation or whether you've been practicing for a while, it's really helpful just to understand these basic concepts. Because I know I was practicing meditation for a while, having some really cosmic experiences, but I wasn't grounded, and I wasn't receiving the full benefit about how to be in this world. Yes, I was having amazing experiences, but my life in the material world was perhaps not all it could be. And I know that my interactions weren't reflecting the incredible spiritual experiences that I was tapping into. So the styles of meditation, the first thing I want to share, direct and indirect. Now, one of the big reasons that people say they can't meditate is because we expect to sit down, sit on the cushion, cross our legs, close our eyes, and snap, we're there. Now, unless you've been practicing for a long time, that's going to be a really hard thing, you know, to sit down and just expect your mind to be still and expect your mind to be spacious when you've spent 25, 30, 40 years thinking, and thinking is the only thing the mind has known. You know, stillness and space is really, really unfamiliar. And that's a large part of the resistance that we experience when we come to practice, is the unfamiliarity of that space. And I'm not going to go too much into the resistance and how to move through that, but it's something that I'm always open to have a conversation about, should you feel. So we've got the direct method, just sit down and expect it to happen. Or what I would generally recommend, and this would be with guided meditations, is the indirect. So something like the mindfulness-based stillness meditation is an indirect means of attaining stillness, because it takes you through a guided process of checking in and calming the aspects which we might typically find disruptive in our experience, before leaving us in the space to experience that stillness. And so it's an indirect means of accessing the spaciousness of our true nature. So this next part, so the three types of meditation, we've got active meditation, passive meditation, or there's a combination. So an active meditation might be something where, you know, you're taken through a visualization, or, you know, a lot of people would use manifestation meditations. This is where the mind is still actively engaging in an experience. It's also bringing in aspects of your environment, you know, things that are outside of you. So passive meditation, as the name suggests, is passive. So we stop trying to push or force or create or change anything. Passive meditation is probably my favorite, because it allows us to sit in the spaciousness of what is. And when we sit with the spaciousness, presence of what truly is, then we create space for that alignment to occur within and around us. So the passive meditation, would be perhaps sitting in simply a mindfulness, just noticing the sensations in your body. And the third type is the combination. So we can combine active and passive. And so for a contemplation, for example, you might sit down to meditate, and the active aspect is to bring up a question. You might sit down, still your thoughts, and bring to mind a question which you'd like to receive guidance on or an answer on. And so you put that question into yourself, into your mind, into your higher self. And then you still yourself and you create that passive aspect where you're ready to receive. And you can be open to the experience of whatever answer comes up. Similarly, we've got things like movement where we're being active and we're moving, but we can also train ourselves to find the stillness within that movement, that connection and that spaciousness within the movement. So back to our intention of healing. So healing through meditation. And the first one that would probably come to mind for you and for many people is visualization. And this is the active. So the visualization works with an intention. We create a specific outcome that we would like to experience. And it might have different expressions. You can, say, for example, if you're working with a tumor, and I've known somebody who, there are actually countless stories of people who have had spontaneous remission of tumors and things like that. I'm not one of them, but I have direct experience of people who I'm connected with who have. So you can intend for healing to occur and then have that expressed through your visualization. So I say many different expressions. You might have a journey. You might take yourself through a journey of the psyche, a journey through a forest. You might go through a white light visualization, and that might be simply receiving white light entering your body or expanding into your field. Or you may choose to visualize the white light directly interacting with, for example, the tumor. Or your visualization may simply be of the tumor or a metaphor for it. And you might simply sit there visualizing it as the unhealthy cells transforming to healthy cells, or perhaps they drain away and that tumor eventually dissolves in size. So visualization can be a very personal thing, and it's something that you can really create yourself. So you can feel into what resonates in terms of symbolism, the symbolism that you might choose to use. And people can get really creative with this. I won't go into it. So we can focus with visualization on our inner landscape. So on our body, maybe we want to heal something in our body, haven't changed the experience of pain. Might be something in our life. So we might be looking at changing our health, or we might be wanting to change a situation at work, and we can have a visualization about how our interactions are occurring in the world outside. What I do recommend with the visualization techniques is that it's done with a gentle sense of being and a surrender. So, and this goes for things like manifestation exercises as well. When we fixate too much and we grip too much onto the outcome that we're trying to create, then it can actually work against us. If we hold on steadfastly to needing a particular outcome, often that will repel the outcome, and that's very true in manifestation work, which essentially this is. So, I would invite you, if you're using this technique, to really create the visualization, but then experience it as an onlooker. Experience it as somebody who's watching it unfold rather than somebody who's manufacturing the outcome. This is a really important distinction. And using that, going into that state of surrender or the state of grace, where this outcome can occur for you. And the last point I just further to that is just being aware that we risk attachment to the outcome. And when we become too attached to an outcome, it can inhibit how it unfolds. So it's kind of this gentle openness, this we create our intention, but then we also let it go. We also allow it to occur, and we can follow that visualization in our mind's eye, or we can, sit there and experience the sensations of the white light in our body without having the mind and the body attached to everything that's happening. It's kind of like micromanaging the outcome. So we don't want to micromanage that. So the second, and this is where my passion lies, is in presence, because presence is where our real power lies. Everything, when you find true presence within, you're in true alignment with not just, well, there is only the here and now, but there's also everything everywhere. And when you can sit in your experience in presence of here and now, everything else can occur and in perfect alignment. It's as though your beingness here allows the tapestry to unravel all around you. So that's going a little bit into the quantum our quantum field, I suppose. But in the context of healing, coming back to presence and mindfulness, which is, but mindfulness is simply using our focus. And there's a beautiful definition of mindfulness, which I'll pop in the comments below. But it's basically about, how we use our focus and, paying attention in a particular way. So when we work with mindfulness or presence, there's nothing to do, there's nothing to project, and there's nothing to design. We're simply allowing ourselves to be in the presence of this experience, to be in the experience and awareness of what, our body's sensations, or, pass on a candle in front of them, or as I like to do, I work with the body sensation. So in being completely present, we are connecting with our mind-body experience, or those sensations, as I mentioned. And in being completely present with our mind-body experience, we're allowing that integration and the balance to come through. So that innate wisdom and that innate intelligence can start to feed into our body. Our cells can begin to respond. Our brain chemistry begins to support the state of safety and wellness. This technique allows us to experience full awareness. So we're not, it draws us out of the narrow focus and the short-sightedness, or the hypervigilance of our thinking mind. Yeah, and in doing so, we can step back and we might access more creative solutions. Different avenues of awareness might come forth. And here I said greater creative solutions. When we stop focusing on the fear-based things that we need to manufacture or change or make happen, different solutions can come forth into our awareness. So presence also creates space for the body's intelligence, or the higher mind, to activate in our experience. So instead of I use the term micromanaging, our thinking mind, our monkey mind, tends to need to micromanage because it sees that it's the only way that we can remain safe, which is a bit of a irony, because it's actually that which keeps our body from reaching that nervous system regulation that allows us to access our healing, our innate healing power. So So our higher mind can activate. So not just activate, but be integrated into our lived experience. And in presence or mindfulness or this spaciousness, we allow ourselves to access truth, our true nature, which is beyond the limited thinking mind. Our limited thinking mind is a great problem-solving focused tool. It identifies, but it's also identifies problems. That's all it knows. So it's constantly looking for problems and then constantly looking for the solution, instead of allowing the universal innate wisdom of our true being to guide our wellness. And as I said, this is a practice. It's backed by science, but we can't snap our fingers and all of yes, we have spontaneous remission and things like that, but the practice occurs. I know that Dr. Joe he actually used visualization for his profound healing. I think it was 6 weeks it took him to heal his spinal injury, and he could move again. But it takes practice, cultivation. So he was very dedicated to sitting and going through the process of mindfulness and healing and visualization that he had constructed for his own healing. So practice. So I just want to invite you now I'll guide you through just a really quick practice to help you get a feeling for this presence. And so what I invite is to stay with the sensation, the moment by moment awareness of whatever I'm guiding you through. And sensation I'm talking about, it's not necessarily on your skin. It might be a smell, it might be a sound, or it might be the feeling. So our body, and I mentioned this before, it's an anchor point for quantum consciousness. If you look at us as being the very center point of the fractal universe, so or the holographic universe. And, it's as though this rich tapestry of reality is forming around the center point of our body. Our body is manifesting our three-dimensional reality. And so by bringing balance and alignment into that, we can begin to reflect into our world a more balanced, aligned, and light solution to reality. So when you do meditate, it's natural for it to feel less than easy. But as we do deepen into the practice, we cultivate a greater connection and it will become more natural. So, and there are different tools that you can use to bring that habit of ease into your meditation. Again, there's another video which I've done on YouTube, which just talks about that, combating and how to invite you more deeply into the ease of practice and deal with the resistance. So let me just stop the screen share. Okay, so wherever you're sitting, I just invite you to take a moment now to find a comfortable spot. I invite you to sit up straight, sitting upright, and if possible, have your legs either crossed or with both feet resting flat on the floor. So once you've found your comfortable posture, just gently close your eyes. And we'll start by noticing the sensation of your feet resting on the floor, the surface area, the sole of your feet, the contact it makes. And just notice that sensation, pressure, tingling. Bring your awareness up to the sensation of your body resting on the surface beneath you, your sit bones pressing into the seat. Just noticing how your hips may be spread, as you're supported by that surface beneath you. Now let's take a deep breath into the belly. And release. Noticing as you let go how your body softens and loosens. Take another deep, nourishing breath into the belly, filling the torso, the chest. And let the body release with the breath. One more deep, nourishing breath into the body. And as you let go, notice the feeling of your body resting and settling. Letting your breath now return to its natural depth and rhythm. I invite you to bring your awareness to rest in the space in front of your closed eyes. This space is like a field of darkness. As you rest your awareness here, you may notice any tension in the small muscles of your eyes and just choose to relax. Just noticing this field of darkness. I now invite you to bring your awareness to any sounds that are coming to you. Sounds from outside the room or inside the room. There's no need to label or identify these sounds. Just noticing the awareness of the sound and allowing it to move through your awareness. Now let's bring our awareness to the breath. Here I invite you to notice the movement of the breath. Perhaps the sensation as it moves in over your nostrils. Perhaps there's the gentle movement of your chest and your belly. Perhaps there's even a gentle sound with the breath. Just your natural breathing. Moving in and out. And we can now bring our awareness to a little of each of these. So we notice the dark space in front of our eyes. Any sounds coming to us. the movement of the breath. And as you're aware of these, also notice the grounded presence at the base of your spine. I invite you now, as we come to the end of this meditation, to just draw your awareness down through your body from the top of your head, shoulders, arms, torso, noticing the base of your spine, through your legs, and noticing again the sensation of your feet resting firmly against the floor. Perhaps you deepen your breath, take a couple of deep breaths, move the fingers and toes, and when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. So I invite you to have a little reflection about how that experience was for you. Did you notice there was resistance to sitting still at any point? Did you notice the mind was particularly activated by anything? Were you able to, remain focused with the guidance and continue to follow where I was drawing your awareness? So when we do a practice like this, an extended practice like this, the real art of what we're doing is it's not in maintaining this perfectly still focused state at all times, or that's ideal. But the true practice is when we notice that our mind has run away, because it will happen to everyone. And when we notice that our mind has run away, we want to draw it back to the presence of the breath, the experience in front of our closed eyes. And this is where the indirect method, which I talked about earlier, is so helpful, because it does give the mind an anchor, but it gives it an anchor to work in a way which is supportive of what we're trying to achieve, rather than the direct method, where there's no anchor, there's no process or technique, and we sit and the mind just takes over. It does what it does. So I'd love to hear how, if you have had anything come up, if you'd like to share in the comments, that would be amazing. And I'm just going to share screen again. So yeah, so this practice it's perfect for beginners. I've got I think a 10-minute meditation available on my website. If you wanted to download that, that's free. And that's kind of an extension of what we've just done. There's this mindfulness, but spaciousness. So we guide ourselves into focus only to then allow ourselves to expand into our true mind, our expanded mind, our innate wisdom, the part of us that is not limited by fear and hypervigilance and problem-solving thought. And so the third point that I want to share with you is just this idea that we must approach it with a gentle discipline. So this kind of meditation is a paradox. It takes discipline. It takes a firm determination often to sit down on the cushion and to stay with it, or the chair, and then to stay there for, if you choose to sit for 5 minutes, sit for 5 minutes. Commit to that 5 minutes. If you choose to sit for an hour, commit to that hour. So it takes determination and discipline, but we must maintain a gentle and compassionate approach to it also, so that when we do notice our mind running off, we don't curse ourselves, we don't curse our mind, we don't get upset or frustrated. But if you do, that's cool too. So, in looking at some of the things that really put people off, or people think they can't meditate, is you're not doing it wrong. Simply having the commitment to a practice. The word practice, it's not, you don't sit down to meditation mastery, you sit down to meditation practice, along the path of mastery, and we all start somewhere. So just because you still have thoughts doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. It simply means that it's a every time that we encounter resistance, it's a source or an opportunity to learn. It helps us to go, okay, well, that's something that's present in my awareness that I can perhaps learn from. If, depending on the nature of the thoughts, and I can't go too deeply into this here, but you can observe the nature of your thoughts. And that might be something that you want to take for journaling later, once you've finished your meditation. It might be something for reflection or contemplation, that idea of noticing something and then putting it out to your higher mind to go, what is this about? Other times it simply takes patience and persistence. Some other times it's simply natural resistance of the thinking mind, because we're not used to sitting in stillness. Like when else in our lives are we taught how to be still? Everything is always do, because it's almost as though there's a certain nobility or perceived nobility in being busy these days. It's like, if you're not busy, you're somehow not valid, or you're not enough. And that's just not true. So with this gentle discipline, we have the patience, we have the patience with yourself, and the persistence to continue to try. At the Vipassana retreat I mentioned recently, gosh, it was so humbling, because there were still sessions where I sat there and my mind was just throwing out. It was just consistently, just so resistant to the stillness. But it was an act of persistence, and a loving persistence to continue to sit there. So don't think you're doing it wrong, and don't think that there's no point to it, because the persistence is where the magic happens. It's in choosing to come back. So the retraining of the mind body. So we're trained into reaction. Our entire lived experience is, whether it's subtle or conscious or subconscious, we live in reaction, to perceived threat, perceived danger, and rarely perceived safety, And so we're, as at a start, this is that opportunity for awareness. We can start to notice our reactions and our habits. And then as we become aware of them, we can begin to choose whether we want to continue with that reaction, or whether we're going to retrain it, so that we can start to learn to be less reactive. We can start to teach our system, our whole mind-body system, how to feel safe. It's our nervous system as well, how to feel safe, that, the danger is simply perceived, and that we can actually practice through that. As I mentioned, we here with the gentle discipline, we simply choose to consistently bring our awareness back from the thinking mind. When we notice it runs away, sometimes you'll notice it within a minute. Sometimes it'll take you 15 minutes before you realize you've gone off on a tangent. But the magic is where you choose to consistently bring it back. Gentle discipline involves acceptance. So accepting that it's not always going to be easy. Resistance is inevitable. The monkey mind, the thinking mind, is fighting for its significance, because it's always run the show. And there's a beautiful Einstein quote, and He said that the intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the thinking mind, its faithful servant. We've created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. So in meditation, we are rebalancing that. We are restoring the balance so that we're retraining the thinking mind to serve us beneath our intuitive mind, our intuitive wisdom. So it's not that one's better than the other. It's just that one has, we've lost our balance. And, the final point here I want to make is one of my favorite attributes to cultivate is non-judgment. It's to observe your experience of what happens when you sit to meditate. And again, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, to allow yourself to persist with that commitment to yourself, because it is a loving commitment, but to notice everything that's happening with non-judgment. So if you notice your mind running away, thank you, mind, come back. Don't judge yourself for having a thought about something. If you start thinking about something that annoys you, don't judge that. Just come back to your breath or whatever your technique is. So non-judgment is such a gift to give yourself, because when we start to treat ourselves with more kindness and less judgment, we can then bring that out into the world, and we'll naturally notice that we get less pissed off with stuff, or less annoyed, less frustrated. So yeah, that's just a little bit of how you can find that peace in your practice. So these are, common resistance points. So what's stopping you? And I invite you to go into these reflections. So without judgment, observe your experience and observe it objectively. So can you be objective about restlessness, discomfort, distraction, or excuses? And can you, understand that restlessness, discomfort, and distractions are functions of the thinking mind? If you carve out 5 minutes for yourself to do a thing, any discomfort or distraction is simply a function of your thinking mind drawing you out of that. And we could, do a whole session about why we find it uncomfortable, because there is subtle discomfort, there's bodily discomfort. So, your shoulders might be sore from sitting upright, or your back might get sore. And that's a whole different, it's not different, but that's a whole level of awareness to understand that it's simply another aspect of the mind. So ask yourself, what is consistently pulling you out of practice, and what can you do to transcend that? What choices can you make? If it's a distraction of the kids, can you perhaps create a space where you are not so available to noise? Or if it's about, if you have thoughts about, what to wear to work tomorrow, can you transcend that by having that already planned? Little things like that. Is it simply a matter of what we mentioned earlier, and just consistently making a choice to push that aside? So when you're considering what's stopping you, journaling can be really supportive. And just going back to that second point, when you experience restlessness, discomfort, distraction, or excuses, don't take that at face value. What's belying that? What's beneath? What's beneath the restlessness? What would it mean for you if you stayed with it? What's the discomfort? What's the story that comes up? And so no magic solutions. It's not that you can't meditate. It's just that it's not always easy. And I think that it's been portrayed that it should be easy. It should be this, transcendental experience, which it is, but we must be able to be with that. It does, like anything worth doing, like any art form, or any even any sport, we need to do the practice to cultivate the skill and to cultivate the presence to do it, and the magic. So, you know, you can't just snap your fingers and go, you know, everything's perfect. But this is the magic pill, which can help you to align with your innate wellness, your innate balance, and your the magic that's within you. You know, these techniques, these practices, and you know, I'd love to share more. If you're interested, drop a comment or you can email me. But you know, these practices are the keys to unlock your natural magic and the beauty of your own soul and your own purpose here on the planet. So this is why I'm super passionate about it, because all you need to do is sit still, and you can tune into the part of you that is more than. Cool. So yes, so if you're watching this, it's on YouTube. But here, if you just pop in, if you are interested in exploring this sort of work, and you know, I do mentoring, and meditation plays a big role in that, but also other modalities like you know, emotional freedom and things like that. So if you do feel drawn to explore this work further, I would love to have a conversation with you about that. You can also access the 5-week online course, and there's the discount code SPIRIT, so that's also on my website. And you know, we could have a chat about one-on-one opportunities to work together. So that's www.ruthkemp.co. And let me just stop the share. Where is that? Yeah, so I love this work because I know firsthand the benefits that are available. And as I mentioned in the beginning, you don't have to go on galactic quests. You don't have to roam through ancient forests, you know, in the mind's eye. All you need, it's just about the willingness to commit to a practice of self-love, really. And that's what this is. And you know, you can take the work as deep or as deep as you want to, or perhaps you know, perhaps you just want to be able to sleep at night and stop being so restless. So whatever level of benefit you're seeking, there is a solution through meditation. And yeah, so I hope that some of what I've shared today has you know, struck a light within you, or perhaps helped give you some clarity around why we do this work, or how perhaps you can experience some great shifts in your life. And my great love to you, dear one, because you know, I just want you to know the depth of your own beauty and the magic of your own soul. So thank you for watching. Oh, if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, or yeah, reach out or comment below. Thank you so much.